What's up, guys? This is Pastor Nathan here. I am outside in my backyard and super stoked because it's a beautiful day. And I filmed this on a Wednesday. It's in April. I don't know when you're watching this, but I hope you've had some opportunities to go and enjoy the beautiful weather. I know that's been really fulfilling for me to be outdoors. My family and I, we just went on a walk. It was great. And especially in a time where there's just so much darkness and pain around, it's good to be able to, actually take stock of some things that we can enjoy and be grateful for, like good weather, good health. But I know for some people that's not the case. As you're kind of looking around, you're probably feeling some of the anxiety and the angst that's happening all around with people that are getting sick. Family members, friends, and even folks that are passing away. I know that I've talked with many of you who've lost loved ones and are struggling with the fact that you can't grieve for them properly, or you're in this place where you have close family members who are essential workers and they're working, whether it's in the healthcare field, they're picking up our garbage, they are at the grocery store. They are doing all sorts of different things and putting themselves at risk so that we can kind of enjoy getting groceries, getting food, some of those essential services that we really enjoy. And it's a tough spot. And so if you're in that place where you're either an essential worker, you're married to one, you live with one, I just want to say thank you so much. We are so grateful for all that you're doing, putting yourself at risk so that so many of us can benefit from that. I don't even have the words to say. I can't imagine what you're going through, what you're thinking through. But I'm praying for you and praying for your safety, that you would experience just blessing in this time of just, it's hard to even describe this time. So I'm like 38. There has never been a time like this in my lifetime. I think the biggest event that I can compare this to is 9/11. And 9/11, just in terms of scope, this is so much bigger. Like, the world has shut down because of this pandemic. And it just seems really dark. It's difficult. People are losing jobs. People are losing their lives. The rest of us are kind of quarantined. We're stuck. And people's anxiety is going up. The angst is going up. The fear is going up. And maybe you're like me and you're kind of going, what is up? Why is this happening? And as a Christian, I go to the Bible, I read scripture, I also read what other leaders have been writing. And there's one guy, his name is Father Richard Rohr, he's a Catholic priest. And he says that in many ways, we're actually being confronted with 5 truths of reality. And when I say these truths to you, I'm going to share them with you in a minute. Some of you are going to be like, well, duh, that's of course. But for some of us, this is like, oh yeah, like that's exactly what I'm feeling. The angst, the fear, maybe even this frustration is because we are actually for the first time experiencing reality as it is, not as we want. Because in the Western world, we are barely touched with suffering. I mean, we do suffer, but it almost seems like it's momentary. We're shocked when we hear about suffering. We don't think it's the norm. But when we actually are confronted with naked, stark reality, it's a whole different story. So Richard Rohr says there are these 5 realities that we are confronted with. And the first is life is hard. And I come from the generation where I got a trophy just for showing up at Little League. And so hearing that life is hard, you're like, yeah, it can be hard sometimes. But that's actually a foundational truth. Life is hard. There is always challenge. There's always difficulty. Everything's being pulled back into entropy, and you have to keep pushing forward. Life is hard. I experience this when I mow my lawn. It's like the grass grows back again, and I'm like, what the heck? I just mowed it down. I just cleaned everything up, and it goes back to chaos. Life is hard. Second truth that Richard Rohr talks about is that you are not important. Pause for a second. You are not important. That's a little bit like, wait, what? Like, it seems so counterintuitive. But if you take a look at the grand scheme of things, like I just heard and astrophysicists say that our planet is a speck on a speck of a speck. The truth is, you're not important. Which brings us to the third truth, which is life is not about you. Whatever role you have, whatever job you have, it can be replaced. And when you think about it, it can be really kind of depressing, which brings us to the fourth truth that all of us are being confronted with right now, which is you are not in control. More than anything else, I think we're realizing we're not in control. There was an illusion of control that we had, but we're not in control. We don't have control over anything. We think we do, but the reality is we don't. And the fifth reality that Father Richard Rohr talks about is that you will die. We are being confronted with the reality of death all around us, and it's overwhelming. It is suffocating, and it's I think made a lot of people pause, because the world is not going to be the same. Just like the world wasn't the same after 9/11, it's not going to be the same after this. And I think before we can talk about hope, because there's hope coming, and I want to talk about hope next week, we need to actually confront these 5 realities. If we don't, we'll just kind of keep living this illusion, this kind of Peter Pan reality. But if we can understand for real what's happening and confront that reality, we can embrace hope. So this week I want you to kind of talk through a couple questions here to maybe help you dig into this, dig into your own soul, what's going on here. First question is this: which one of those 5 truths are you having the hardest time with? Are you having a hard time with the reality that life is hard, things aren't going to come easy, that you are not that important and life's not about you, that you're not in control, or that you're going to die? I think at some points we are all confronted with this, but we're in a situation now where we're confronted with all of these things. And the reason why I think we need to wrestle with this, which brings us to the second question, what is it that you think God is trying to kill in you? It's a very morbid question, I know, but here's why I'm asking it this way. In Christianity, before there can be resurrection, there has to be crucifixion. Before you can have capacity for more of what God is doing in your life, something has to be removed. Is God trying to remove your self-reliance? Is he trying to remove your pride? Is he trying to remove maybe your way of looking at things, always trying to make things better than they actually are, always trying to, remix things? I'm an Enneagram 7, if any of you know what that means. I'm always like looking at the silver lining. I can always find a silver lining, but maybe God's saying to me, maybe you need to stop looking at the silver lining and acknowledge the pain that's happening right now. Those 2 questions. Which one of those realities is the hardest for you right now that you're wrestling with? And then the second is, what is it that God is trying to kill in you? What is he trying to remove? Go ahead and leave something in the comments if you want to share it with others. Otherwise, you can just email me, nathan@liquidchurch.com. Would love to know what God's doing in you. Next week, I want to talk about hope. That even though those 5 realities are real, I want to talk about what God has for you at the end of those realities. All right, guys, take care. I'll see you next week.